Hey guys, welcome to another video from Arcade USA. Today, I'm going to talk about the book Smoke and Mirrors, the rise and fall of a serial entrepreneur. I can't talk today, I'm sorry. This was a book that was on Kickstarter, and it's written by Mike James, UKMike from the Retro Gaming Roundup Podcast. And what this is, it's the story of the rise and fall of UKMike. His humble beginnings of, being a kid, growing up, and getting into video games, his time on Retro Arcade Radio, when he got into doing Retro Gaming Roundup with Scott and UKMike, all the way through to his downfall, the Clico Chameleon, and all that debacle. Now, before we get into talking about the book, understand I am in this book. Unfortunately, I'm the type of guy who tends to trust people too much and take them at their word. I try to be loyal to my friends, and that is a detriment, unfortunately. It's a flaw, I guess, because I blindly followed along with Mike for a while, until my eyes were finally opened up. And I gotta thank UKMike and Scott Schreiber from the Retro Gaming Roundup that they stuck by me. Even though they knew I was being misled, they tried to tell me, and I tried to stay in the middle between them and UKMike, trying to be neutral, because I liked all of them, and I was trying to, be in the middle and try to minimize, I don't know what the word is, but that doesn't work when you got one guy that's telling you one thing and you got your other friends telling you another. It was a very confusing time for me, and I really regret it a lot. I'm still really good friends with UKMike and Scott. They stuck by me, so I'm very thankful for that. I highly value their friendship now. They're a couple of really good guys. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about the book. Anyway, Mike James, he spent a lot of time and effort to document all the history of what was going on behind the scenes. This book is over 600 pages long. It has a lot of great detail in it. If you're all interested about the inner workings, what happened behind the scenes of Game Gavel, or Gamer Spots, or the Retro Magazine, and especially the Clico Chameleon, this is a good book to check out. I mean, there's a lot of posts and threads on the internet talking about the whole debacle and stuff, and there's a lot of theories and things. Well, Mike and Scott were pretty much on the inside getting all this information from other people who were involved with it. So they collected all this data and all this other information in order to compile this book. I don't recall how long it took Mike to compile this book. I know he worked on it for quite a while. He contacted me a few times to get information from me, and I shared everything, no holds barred. I put it all out there. My stupidity, everything. And I have to say, they did treat me very well in the book. They didn't have to, but they did. And I really appreciate that. I'm very sorry for ever doubting them. I won't make that mistake ever again. I mean, as one of the major problems I have now is because of this situation, I'm not as trusting as I used to be. I have a hard time believing things I'm told now. I guess I'm not as naive as I used to be, or gullible. I'm a really friendly guy. I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and unfortunately, when you have that type of personality, you get taken advantage of quite a bit. And that's been my story of my life. Anyway, this is like drama stuff. I don't like doing drama stuff on my channel, but I figured this is a good time to talk about it since this book came out. The book is out now. All the digital copies are being sent out to the Kickstarter people who backed it. I was one of the backers. I also backed the next tier up to get a physical copy of the book, which I'm looking forward to having in my library to further support UKMike and his efforts of what he's done. But the book is really good. He breaks down the way it doesn't really follow a kind of a timeline, really. It kind of takes the different chapters of what happened and talks about him. Like, it kind of jumps around just a little bit. Not bad, just a little bit. He kind of handles each aspect differently because a lot of this stuff was happening at the same time. You know, Game Gavel, Retro Magazine, and the Retro VGS, they were kind of happening at the same time. So instead of bundling all together, he kind of broke it down to, like, you know, talking about Game Gavel and the evolution to Retro Magazine and the evolution to Retro VGS and all that stuff to make it a little bit easier to follow. So don't look at it as an actual timeline. It's actually broken down by the subject. So it kind of feels like it's jumping around a little bit. But it's still all there. There's a lot of great quotes. They've got I can't say how good this book is. I really enjoyed reading it. It was a roller coaster of emotions for me because it did open up a lot of old wounds, stuff I'm not happy about that I did. That was just plain stupidity. I admit that. But I highly recommend this book. I thought this would also be a good time to maybe talk a little bit more in detail of stuff that I was involved in. Some of it's not even in the book. I don't think I shared this with UK for the book. I don't recall. It's been a while since we've talked about this. But, you know, back when the Retro Gaming Roundup Podcast began, I didn't discover the podcast until I think a couple years or so after they started. I think I started listening around 2010 or so. I can't remember. And I fell in love with the podcast. I still do I love the podcast. I mean, it's a fun podcast to listen to. If you like retro gaming and you like hearing a lot of great stories and a lot of great interaction between Scott, UKMike, Mike Kaminsky, and some others, it's a fun podcast. I can't recommend it highly enough. I'll put a link down in the notes of this video so you can go check out the Retro Gaming Roundup website and see the episodes and stuff like that. But anyway, I start to get to know the host at the time was SoCal Mike, Scott Schreiber, UKMike. Really fun group of guys to listen to. They had a really great rapport with each other. Very funny. A really great time they had recording this podcast. And luckily enough, you know, with my work, I travel all over the country. I travel over Canada, overseas. And I happened to get lucky and was able to visit SoCal Mike at his home. I can't remember what year it was, but it was early on in the Arcade USA channel when I started it. So I was able to do a video and talk to him and show his stunt pilot mechanical arcade game that he had. And, you know, really got to know Mike a little bit better. Very friendly guy. He's a guy who was easy to like. Very easy guy to like. And he was a really good guy in the very beginning. I don't know what happened to him, but he wasn't the same guy at the end as the one I met when I interviewed him for Arcade USA. I've also interviewed Scott Schreiber as well. I've got a few videos on him and his home arcade. I want to give him equal mention too, that he's another really very close friend of mine that I value his friendship a lot. I've not been able to interview UKMike yet because he lives in the UK, and I've not been to the UK in years, but eventually when I get over to the UK, I plan on hanging out with UKMike and maybe go to a game expo or something like that with him. I mean, that's one of the goals I'm trying to set in the future once we get past the pandemic and everything. But anyway, moving on to that, you know, I got the ColecoVisions podcast started up with SoCal Mike and John Lester, Gamester 81. We had a really good time doing that podcast. Unfortunately, what happened with the Clico Chameleon, and when my eyes finally were open and I saw all the stuff that was going on, that kind of took the wind out of my sails to continue on with the ClicoVisions podcast. I tried to move on with the podcast and keep doing it, and brought Brett Weiss on, who's a really, really fun guy to talk to. He writes a lot of great books. He has a fun YouTube channel to watch, link down below. I have to apologize to Brett Weiss in this as well. He's very enthusiastic about the ClicoVision. And it's very unfair to him that I kind of just shelved the show, because he just got started. He was having a good time. It's just, I just wasn't into it anymore. I still like the ClicoVision. I would like to do the podcast some more, but I'm a little standoffish on asking John Games31 to come back in and have Brett come back and do it again. I don't know. I'm having problems trying to deal with that right now. I did do some Clicocades with my buddy RK to try to keep the ClicoVision content rolling, but an actual ClicoVisions podcast like you were familiar with early on, I've not really done. I was setting up another podcast. I was setting it up to record another podcast to do Cubert's Cubes with Brett and John, and I just couldn't do it. I apologize for that to those guys if they're watching the video. I know you both really enjoy doing that. But also in the book, it talks a little bit about Game Gavel starting out from Chase to Chuckwagon, and then went to Game Gavel. Now, I promoted Game Gavel heavily on my channel. You're probably familiar with this banner up here. In a lot of my earlier videos, you see that banner with that little G and the little thing scrolling around it. I promoted Game Gavel a lot. I was really into it. And as part of Game Gavel, Gamer Spots came about. Now, Gamer Spots was the perfect place for me to share all the different arcades I've been to, all the different retro game stores. It is an absolutely incredible, it was a great idea to do. Fortunately, the page is not there anymore, but I put a lot of work into that page, entering data, locations of arcades and things like that. I think I was their #1 contributor over there. I had a ton of stuff I put in, and it all went away, due to the Clico Chameleon, which is a shame. All that data's lost now. And of course, Retro Magazine. I was involved with Retro Magazine. I still have my... Get over there. Get off of there. I still have the premiere issue in my collection. I had like 3 or 4 of these, and I gave some away, and I gave one to the Play Museum to have in their archives because they wanted one as well. And of course, I have an article in here. I was asked by SoCal to write for this magazine, and he wanted me to do a arcade type article. Gamer Spots is in this as well. Now, I think I'm on page 14 in this thing. Yeah, there I am. And you can see it right there, this page. Arcade USA. It's a great idea. The unfortunate thing is I learned sometime later from Scott that Mike actually didn't want me to write for the magazine. Why he asked me to write for the magazine and then talk behind my back about ways to axe me, I will never understand. They actually, UKMike and Scott actually have email evidence of that, and it really floored me. It's in the book, in the Chameleon book. The Smoke and Mirrors book as well. That really floored me. How he could be that two-faced. It really hurt too, to tell you the truth. He also hosed over other people as well with the magazine. I know he promoted Mr. Contry, Pat the NES Punk, for this premiere issue, that he was going to be in it, and Pat's not in there. So, I know that really upset Pat as well. rightfully so, because, Mike used him to promote the magazine, and Mr. Country was even in the magazine. So that wasn't right. I didn't realize that at the time. I was pretty oblivious, unfortunately. But see what? Oh yeah, for Retro Magazine. Now this was unpaid. This was unpaid work that I was doing. I have a ton of these promotional handouts. I got a lot of these things, and every place I would go, to like the new game store or to a new arcade or whatever, I would leave some of these behind with the owners, asking if they can, see if they can help promote the magazine, if they wanted to sell the magazine at their location. I had a business card even to how to get contacted, get hooked up, to get subscriptions and things like that. This was unpaid. I just did this because I was very enthusiastic about Retro Magazine. Unfortunately, it didn't really do very well towards the end. There's a lot of information about Retro Magazine in the Smoking Beers book that UK put out. Mr. Kaminsky, who's on the Retro Gaming Roundup podcast now, he really got ran through the ringer that I didn't realize until I read this book. That poor guy put up with a lot of shenanigans from Mike, which was unfortunate. Then, of course, we had the Retro VGS, or in other words, the Legal Chameleon, come out. And Mike got a hold of the actual molds for the Atari Jaguar, and he made a bunch of the clear shells for people trying to raise money. He actually sent me one, and I actually, after all this debacle came about, I don't remember if I sold it off or if I gave it away. That's like a black hole in my memory now. I just kind of erased all that from my memory, because it's a very hurtful time for me, in that point in time. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff that went on with the Chameleon. Stuff I didn't realize, I didn't understand, because I wasn't, in that core group that were doing all the decision making and things like that. I was basically being told stuff. Basically, I was used to help promote. That's all I was to SoCal, was a promotion tool. Yeah, a tool. There you go. That's what I was. I was a tool. But when the events happened up at the New York Toy Show, this is also in the book. The part I want to tell you is not in the book, but the New York Toy Show is talked about in the Smoke and Mirrors book. SoCal Mike, showed the Glico Chameleon up there. And he happened to show the back of the console, which was basically a Super Nintendo Mini. And a lot of stuff happened. People started questioning what's inside that shell. It's got to be a Super Nintendo Mini. The cartridge being used was used for, putting games on the Super Nintendo Mini off of a flash card, that kind of thing. I don't remember what the cartridge was called. But I saw this unfolding while I'm sitting at the hotel room. I couldn't get out because it snowed really bad, and it was still snowing, and they canceled all the flights out of Raleigh, where I was flying out of. So I spent the day in Raleigh in a hotel room while the New York Toy Show was going on, and I'm seeing all this stuff. My wife and I were around the town. We went to the museum. We made a day of it, just to kill time. But while we're at the museum and eating out and stuff like that in downtown Raleigh, how do you spell it? Yes, I can't talk. I saw these posts come up from the New York Toy Show, and I started seeing all these messages. Then I started seeing messages from people I know that watched the Arcade USA show, asked me, do I see what's happening? And I called Mike Saturday night, and I asked him, point blank, I was like, you need to tell me, is there a Super Nintendo Mini inside of that shell? And I basically got the, which he was really good at doing. And I knew once he started doing that, it was not legit. And that's when my eyes were fully opened. I contacted Scott not too long after, and Scott just started telling me all this other stuff that was going on, and I felt like an idiot. I really did. I actually almost stopped doing the channel because of it. It really took a lot of wind out of my sails. I got a lot of heat from people. That that's almost what killed the channel, frankly. Especially after Game On Expo. I actually attended Game On Expo to help support Mike when it was called the Retro VGS. It was the first expo that was held in Mesa, Arizona. It was done by Jason Heine, Gamester 81, John Lester, and I'm sorry, but I think there was a third person. I can't remember the name. Maybe it's Pete Dorr. I can't remember. I'm sorry if I don't mention your name and you're a part of the setup team for that. But there was a Retro VGS booth there, and I was there in all my stupidity. I was mainly there just to hand out flyers and play the Tiny Night demo game they had there during the panel was my whole purpose. And I could feel there were some problems going on while I'm there, because it was kind of like the Retro VGS booth was kind of like the pariah of the show. It's all I can. It was a feeling. It was a strange feeling. But I did have a good time out there. I've not really wanted to go back out to another Game On Expo. John, Game Story One, has invited me out many times, want me to come out again, and I just don't feel right going out there after all this stuff that happened. It still affects me to this day. Game On Expo has grown, and it's a really good expo to go to. I may go to it again sometime in the future after the pandemic, but right now it still brings back a lot of bad memories for me to think about that expo. But what else can I say? Oh yeah, there's another incident that's in the book you can read about that talks about these little Coleco tabletop games. There was a Donkey Kong, I think a Galaxian, maybe a Frogger, I can't remember. But these were games that were busted. I mean, they were really bad off. One of them even had part of the circuit board broken off. I think that was the Donkey Kong one, where I'd actually solder in jumper wires to bypass that part of the circuit board that was broken off, get the machine to run. These were very delicate machines, and I sent them out to SoCal to use for research when we talk about them on the ColecoVision podcast, because we didn't have them. They were basically, I just loaned them out to him. Now, granted, I did send him things to have for his collection, and I guess he got confused, and I guess he thought I gave these to him, which I didn't. No, if you knew SoCal Mike like I did back then, he was very scatterbrained, and I could see how that could happen. But it really upset me when he sold them on eBay. I wasn't mad because he sold stuff that belonged to me. What I was upset about is he sold them to people that were not aware that these things were on a shoestring repair. It was a good repair. I tried to do really good repairs when I fixed things, but they were not told these machines were majorly damaged and they were repaired inside. I got in touch with one of the guys that bought the Donkey Kong and offered him, I would actually, buy it back off of him, all that stuff. He said no, it was fine. He was just going to make it into a little mini MAME arcade machine, which I've seen a lot of those being used for that, which is perfect because the board was broken anyway. So I was happy about that. I wasn't able to get in touch with the other person who bought the other machine, unfortunately. But SoCal did refund their money, which was, the right thing to do. He tried to give me money back. I didn't want it. somebody set me up a GoFundMe page, and Mike contributed the entire amount right off the bat to it. And, I didn't want that money. So instead of taking the money, I decided, there was another member in our community that was really going through a really rough time. And I decided just to give the money to them, to him and his family, to help out. This is in the book. So if you're interested in it, you can read about it there. But I just wanted nothing to do with that subject anymore. SoCal and these little, I just want to get done with it. Matter of fact, Ian and Pat made a video talking about this situation. Ian said he wants to buy me a sandwich. I went to his store. He wasn't there. I was trying to collect on my sandwich. I still want my sandwich, Ian. Anyway, I have rambled a lot in this. I really apologize for that, guys. I normally don't like doing these type of videos, but I wanted to provide a little bit more input of what involvement I had in all this debacle, everything that happened. I highly recommend you get this book, The Smoke and Mirrors. There's a digital version available. I think you can still buy a digital version. I'll put a link down to the Kickstarter down below. Maybe Mike can comment on the video when he sees it, UKMike, when he sees it, and provide details of if people can still get the book or not. I'm really looking forward to the hard copy to have in my library, as I said before. I can't say enough about UKMike and the work he's done on this book, and how much the Retro Gaming Roundup podcast team means to me. I'll forever be in their debt. They did help me start Arcade USA. They got me motivated. They provided me the support. They gave me shout outs on their podcast to help me get my channel started. And I'll forever be in gratitude of that. Anyway, that's enough of this. I hope everybody's going to have a really great day. Please be safe out there, and catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.